Well, have you guys heard of Daniel Baker?
No.
Are you familiar with him? Okay, so he's kind of a relative of mine. So he was a military guy, and he was actually fighting with the YPG in Syria for a while.
This is okay.
And if you remember the January 6th revolt, and they were saying that there was people were going to do like storm all the state capitals.
Just so it can catch people up, you're saying that he was supportive of the Kurds in Syria, right?
Yeah, he was literally fighting there. In fact, he was in the there was a Vice documentary. I don't know if you may have come across it, but yeah, he was actually in that, and he did fight with them.
Okay.
So my point is that he was just like, he was a guy on the left, right? And when everybody was talking, when the right was talking about how they were going to storm all the state capitals, he was saying like, we should go out there in force and stop them, right? So, basically, the point of the story is when he did that, the feds arrested him.
Holy shit. I'm looking at the Intercept article now. Will you put this up? Natasha Leonard wrote a piece about him in October. He was sentenced to 44 months in federal prison for his social media post that called for armed defense against possible far-right attacks on the state's capital.
Yeah. Yeah, so now compare this to like somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse, who like basically actually did the same thing, but went out and actually killed 2 people. Now, Daniel was arrested. The day never even came. All he did was say that we should do this. And they put him in prison for 44 months. And I wanted to like quickly, this is from the Justice Department website. This is a quote from the acting U.S. Attorney General, acting U.S. Attorney on the case. They said that the free exercise of speech is central to our democracy. However, the defendant's threats of armed violence to inhibit expression of political views different than his own are both unlawful and dangerous. And today's sentence acknowledges the defendant's threats to incite violence and should serve as a significant deterrent to those who would solicit others to join them in conducting criminal acts rather than engage in lawful debate. And I just find that so cynical in comparison to the way that they treated somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse, or just in general, like the way that the state or like power structures will enforce, these sort of norms on the left versus how they treat them on the right. And I just like, we've been trying to get through for so long because we wanted to just like bring this up and make sure that people knew about it, because I just think it's really, I don't know. It's personal to me, and it's also just like kind of it's sick. I don't know. It's like a sick joke. It's
sick, and apparently at his sentence hearing, I'm reading from the article now. U.S. District Judge Alan Windsor, a Trump nominee, whose appointment was vehemently opposed by a coalition of over 200 civil and human rights groups, said that Baker had intended to commit acts of violence like he went to Rojava to do.
Right. Right. But he didn't even nothing even.
He didn't leave his apartment.
Yeah, he didn't do anything. Like the day never even happened. It was just sort of like, almost like, I guess they were saying that it was like a transmission of a threat or something. But like, if that's the threshold, like how often do people like the Proud Boys or whatever, go out and say that they're going to go beat people up on the street or whatever,
It's nuts.
Like, what's the difference here? Like, what is the principle that we're applying? And he's in jail, he's in jail for real right now, and he's not going to get anything for it. And by contrast, like Kyle Rittenhouse gets like this whole media tour, and he's going to be like a celebrity and, probably end up, getting some high paying jobs someplace. What is there's no comparison in like how these things, and even with Hassan and getting like, banned, it's like, I think Emma posted about this earlier. It's too bad that she's not here today, but something about like how they're like trying to manufacture this center between like what is, the left does something like calls somebody cracker, and we're going to crack down on that because that's somehow equivalent to, the right, spewing like white nationalist propaganda or whatever, and that somehow these things are equivalent and have to be enforced equally.
I mean, this Yeah, in and of itself, this is a really stunning story. But it also puts, it shows the fallacy of like, look, if you do this, it's going to come around and come to the left. It's already been here. This is already the dynamic.
That's just trying to set the table so you can blame the left when they continue to do it. Exactly. This is already the pre-existing dynamic. We had, the Bush administration was sending the FBI out to surveil vegan protesters in front of a ham place in Georgia, I think, 15 years ago. I mean, this has been ongoing. And the idea that there is any calls for some form of parody or any calls for, will bring about, are obscure, the blowback obscures this stuff. I don't, without having a sense of what your cousin was posting online. I mean, this just seems unbelievable. His sentence was for 4.5 years.
44 months. Yeah.
3.5 years.
3.5, something like that. But
and he had been held for 8 months, it says.
Right. And I would encourage you to just like kind of like New York Times did a story about it. Yeah. Like you said, The Intercept, I guess the difference is that because he actually had fought in Syria, like they considered him like a little bit more serious in his threat or whatever. But like,
how does that come into
gotta be vets making threats on the right.
I was going to say, a lot of these people who've been talking about this stuff it's just, I don't know how you can justify what Rittenhouse did, who ended up killing 2 people.
How can you even be silent about the Baker thing if you have been all over the Rittenhouse thing as a triumph of justice or whatever?
Yeah.
I think it says a lot about any kind of civil libertarian that would be so keen to be seen in the Rittenhouse beat and have nothing to say about this.
Yeah, and this was all wrapped up in after the January 6th thing, I think that they were just like desperate to like find somebody and say that they were like not going to let this happen again.
Right.
And he was sort of like just the closest thing that they could come up with, to having any sort of legitimate threat. And I just like,
they used him as a way of, I think that's frankly what happened to Hassan. And, I think, it's the law enforcement does this all the time. Like, I'm convinced like Comey came out with that letter about Clinton because he thought that he was going to arrest Trump. I mean, there's this sort of notion of we need to maintain some, there's this desire for just sort of balance for the sake of balance. Even if it means that we're not actually, we've got to put our thumb on the scale a little bit on one side or the other, just to make it look like we're fair arbiters.
Yeah, totally. And the attorney went on to say that, quote, this case proves that the FBI will not tolerate those who seek to wreak havoc in our communities. And violence designed to intimidate citizens and influence government is what the FBI's counterterrorism team was designed to combat. It's just, I don't know, just so cynical and so like, it's almost like just obviously misapplied in different cases. And like I said, he's going to have nothing for it. He was already like, he was homeless for a little while. Like he's not,
he's not going to cash in on this.
No, he's definitely not going to cash in on. Yeah. There's no left. Yeah.
Should we have Ron and ask him can just like what kind of women he's into?
Yeah. Right. Oh my God. It's pathetic. Yeah. But
keep us updated and email us, if there's any developments, but we'll try and talk more about this story. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for taking my call. And sorry, I kind of spaced a little bit. You caught me totally off guard. I've been on hold, like just mindlessly for so long. I almost forgot I was even on the phone. So
well,
like, oh my God, I can't
appreciate your calling
on the show.
And if you or other people have stories like this, try and email us too. And, we don't respond to many emails, but we read, we try and read all of them. And so, I appreciate your patience and you getting in touch with us about it. That's crazy. That's a crazy
Absolutely.
Story.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it so much. Okay.
Sounds like a good candidate for a pardon, I think.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't think Ron DeSantis is going to be there. I don't know that you can, but I guess this is a federal, it must be a federal case, right? Of course. It's a Trump, that's unbelievable. I wonder if this was a U.S. attorney, too, who was a Trump appointee. We got to look into that more. I mean, that's the thing, is that there's this assumption that, like, on the day that Joe Biden has inaugurated, that the apparatus of a government that has been built up over 4 years just goes away, and it doesn't. I mean, I want to be clear that I am not, defending the Biden administration when it comes to things like these leases, or defending the Biden administration when it comes to these things like those negotiations for the Remain in Mexico. And I certainly have no information to this effect. But I've talked to people, both on and off the show, who work in these agencies. And these agencies are decimated under at least the last two Republican presidencies, because that's what they do. And they're also just staffed up with a lot of Republicans who have a specific agenda that is different from what the administration is. And it is not easy to necessarily control them. You can't even necessarily fire them. And you want to slow walk something, but there are certain key people in the agency who are like, we're not slow walking it. We've got this legal authority, and we're just going to run with it. And there's nothing the administration can do. I don't know that that's the case, but I think it's something that, like, if you really want to, you've got to contemplate.
Well, it's like, and what's their appetite going to be to chase down all that stuff? Is like, they'll often just let it ride because they're not as concerned about it as we are.
Yeah, but I'm also not even sure that it's appetite as much as it is, like, how big is your stomach? I mean, it's just, anybody who's worked in any type of enterprise understands that it's like, yes, okay, you do prioritize stuff, obviously. You have to. But that's how you prioritize, and what gets done is also a function of the capacity. And I'm not making excuses here. I don't know that that's the case with this at all. In fact, I'd be curious if, like, this feels like, somebody at the American Prospect should be writing about this stuff.